Lieutenant Mara Ellison leaned back in her seat aboard the Aegis Scout, her eyes scanning the endless black of space. Stars glittered like tiny diamonds scattered across a velvet curtain. It was quiet, almost too quiet. Out here, in the Seraphis cluster, the only sounds were the low hum of the ship's engines and the occasional beep from the instruments. Mara had been stationed on this remote outpost for 3 months. It was far from Earth, far from the bustling cities, far from the crowded streets where humans lived and dreamed. Here, in the silent expanse of space, every movement mattered. Every decision could mean life or death. She sipped the recycled water from her canteen, staring at the holographic map floating above her desk. It showed the nearby systems, planets, and asteroid belts. Nothing unusual had appeared for days. That was why she was uneasy. Suddenly, the console blinked red. A faint signal appeared on the screen. Mara straightened up. The signal was weak, barely detectable, but it was there. She tapped the console to amplify it. "Lieutenant, you might want to hear this," said Ensign Rico, the youngest member of the crew. His voice was steady, but Mara could sense the excitement beneath it. The signal grew stronger. A soft, trembling voice, unlike any human language, whispered through the speakers. It was desperate. Mara froze, listening closely. "It's a distress call," she said softly. The words felt strange in her mouth, almost unreal. She had trained for this. She had prepared for first contact. Yet hearing a real, living voice pleading for help sent a shiver down her spine. The message repeated, broken and fragmented. "Help our world. Falling must survive." Mara's heart pounded. She immediately began logging the coordinates and transmitting the data back to Earth. The message was clear. Someone or something was in danger. "Lieutenant," Rico said, his eyes wide, "should we respond? Should we go down there?" Mara hesitated. Protocol required her to wait for instructions from Earth, but looking at the signal, she couldn't ignore it. Something in her gut told her that waiting could be too late. She nodded. "Prepare the landing shuttle. We're going down, quietly, carefully, but we're going to help them." The shuttle detached from the Aegis Scout, gliding silently toward the planet below. Mara piloted with steady hands, her eyes scanning for threats. As they entered the atmosphere, the landscape came into view. It was a planet of vast plains, mountains in the distance, and rivers that glimmered like silver threads under the sun. Yet the beauty could not hide the destruction. Fires burned in scattered patches across the land. Smoke rose into the sky in dark plumes. Mara's stomach twisted. This world was under attack. "Looks like we're not the first ones here," Rico murmured. From above, they could see massive shapes moving across the land. Machines, unlike anything Mara had ever seen. They were huge, metallic, and clearly hostile. Cities were crumbling under their fire. The distress signal had been urgent for a reason. Mara tightened her grip on the controls. "Hold steady. We're going in." The shuttle landed on a plateau overlooking a small valley. The wind kicked up dust and ash as the engines powered down. Mara and her team donned their suits, weapons ready, and stepped out. The air was thick, carrying a faint metallic scent. They were in a war zone, and the beings who had sent the call were nowhere in sight. "Spread out," Mara commanded. "We move fast, we move smart. Eyes open." As they moved through the valley, the team saw signs of life. Strange creatures, tall with luminous skin and delicate wings, were running for cover. They looked fragile, unarmed, clearly no match for the machines tearing through their cities. Mara felt a pang of anger. How could any species face such destruction without hope? Then the ground shook violently. A massive war machine appeared on the horizon, firing energy beams that tore through the terrain. The alien creatures scattered, screaming in fear. Mara ducked behind a rock, her pulse racing. "They can't fight back like this," Rico whispered. "No," Mara agreed. "But we can't wait for backup. We have to do what we can now." Using the shuttle's scanners, Mara identified a group of survivors trapped near a collapsed building. She signaled to her team. "We move fast. Cover each other. We get them out." The team sprinted across the open land, dodging the machine's attacks with careful timing and clever maneuvers. Mara couldn't help but notice something strange. Despite their fear, the alien creatures were not giving up. They tried to help each other, guiding the injured toward safety. There was intelligence here, and something deeper. A will to survive that reminded Mara of humans back on Earth. When they reached the trapped group, Mara knelt beside a small creature struggling under debris. Its wing was broken. She gently lifted it, checking for injuries. The creature looked at her with wide, trusting eyes. "You're safe now," Mara said softly. "We're here to help." The evacuation was tense. The war machines were relentless, attacking anything that moved. Mara's team used every tactic they had learned, covering each other using the terrain, distracting the machines with controlled blasts. Slowly, they guided the survivors to the shuttle. Once everyone was aboard, Mara piloted the shuttle into orbit. The view of the planet below was devastating. Fires burned, cities lay in ruins, and the massive machines still roamed unchecked. Yet Mara felt a sense of hope. They had saved lives. That counted for something. As the shuttle transmitted data back to Earth, Mara watched the stars. Somewhere far away, humans would receive the cry for help, and somewhere far away, decisions would be made, decisions that could change the fate of this planet and perhaps the galaxy. Rico broke the silence. "Do you think Earth will send help?" Mara didn't answer immediately. She knew the answer wasn't simple. Bureaucracy, politics, and fear often delayed action. But she also knew something else. Humans had a history of rising to challenges that seemed impossible. "We'll see," she said finally, "but I have a feeling. This is just the beginning." Back on the planet, the survivors huddled together, watching the tiny shuttle disappear into the sky. They didn't understand the language nor the technology, but they understood courage when they saw it, and in that moment something changed. A spark of hope ignited. Hope that even in the darkest times help could arrive. Above them, in the silent sky, the faint echo of a human voice lingered. It was a promise, a warning, a call to action, and somewhere across the stars, Earth heard it. Back on Earth, in the gleaming halls of the United Nations Space Command, the atmosphere was tense. Multiple screens displayed streams of data from the SCIFI cluster. At the center, Admiral Chen stood, arms crossed, eyes scanning the reports. Lieutenant Mara Ellison's transmission had arrived hours ago. The message, faint and broken, was now clearer. It contained coordinates, images, and an urgent plea for help. Earth's linguists and scientists worked around the clock, decoding the alien language, interpreting the gestures, and piecing together the story of a species under siege. The beings, delicate and luminous, were technologically weaker than humans. Their cities were advanced in architecture, but lacked the weaponry to defend themselves. The attackers, massive machines with devastating firepower, were alien beyond imagination, armored, relentless, and organized with military precision. "Admiral," said Dr. Lena Torres, the lead linguist, stepping forward. "The message is clear. They are pleading for help. If we don't act fast, the species will be wiped out." Chen rubbed his chin. "We are hearing them, Dr. Torres, but committing Earth's forces is not a simple decision. There are risks, political, strategic, and logistical." Dr. Torres shook her head. "These beings are intelligent and sent the distress signal themselves. If we do nothing, it will be genocide." Chen nodded slowly, his expression grave. He had faced difficult decisions before, but this was different. Humanity had a choice: stand aside or step forward. And for once, the voices calling for help were clear, direct, and impossible to ignore. Meanwhile, in the media rooms across the globe, leaked data from the transmission had begun to circulate. News channels showed images of the planet's destruction, the strange creatures, and the devastating war machines. Social media exploded. Citizens demanded action. They didn't care about politics or red tape. They only wanted to help. "The world is watching," Chen muttered. He turned to the holographic map showing Earth's fleets and resources. "Prepare all available units. We'll need the full fleet, and we'll need it fast." On the other side of the planet, scientists and engineers rushed to prepare ships for deep space deployment. Pilots trained in simulations, strategists worked on multiple attack scenarios, and communications experts synchronized data channels. Every system of Earth's military moved with urgency, as if sensing the life of a species hung in the balance. In the midst of this preparation, Mara continued her mission in the SCIFI cluster. The alien survivors had begun to trust her and her team. They were hesitant, afraid, but also curious. Mara could see the intelligence in their eyes, the same spark that had always driven humans to survive against impossible odds. At night, Mara stood on a cliff, staring at the horizon where smoke and fire met the purple glow of the sky. She thought about Earth, about the millions of people who were now aware of their plight. She hoped that the cry for help would reach the right ears, and that humans would come not as invaders but as protectors. And they did. The first ships of Earth's fleet jumped into the SCIFI cluster. The fleet was massive, shimmering with power and bristling with weapons. Humans had spent decades preparing for space defense, but this was different. They were not here to conquer. They were here to protect. Admiral Chen commanded from the flagship Vigilant, observing the fleet and the alien planet below. He knew the enemy was powerful, possibly stronger than any human force had faced in open space, but he also knew something unique about humanity. They never gave up. They fought for life, for hope, for others. "They are counting on us," Chen said quietly, "and we will not fail." The fleet approached the planet cautiously. Reconnaissance drones flew ahead, scanning for enemy positions. Reports came in quickly. War machines had multiplied. The planet's surface was a battlefield. Entire regions were reduced to rubble. Yet even in the ruins, the alien survivors continued to resist. They fled, hid, and helped each other, showing courage that humans recognized instantly. Mara's team met the first reconnaissance units from Earth. The moment they saw humans in person, hope lit the alien faces. Words were not needed. The presence of humans, strong, capable, and determined, spoke louder than any signal. On board the flagship, Admiral Chen watched the feeds. "Engage the enemy in the least destructive way possible," he ordered. "Our goal is to protect the survivors, not destroy their planet. But if they threaten life, neutralize them." Back on the planet's surface, Mara led the evacuation of small groups of alien survivors. Each rescue mission was a careful balance between speed and safety. The war machines were still patrolling, firing without hesitation. But humans were relentless. They used clever tactics, diversionary explosions, stealth drones, and even environmental traps to slow the enemy. As Mara guided a group through a dense forest, she noticed something remarkable. The aliens were starting to understand her gestures and signals. They moved faster, hid better, and even helped with minor distractions. It was a partnership, born not out of fear alone, but out of trust. Above, the Earth fleet engaged the first wave of enemy war machines. Human ships were smaller, but they were fast and precise. They used strategies no other species had predicted. Instead of a straight attack, they moved in patterns that forced the enemy to split their fire. They used the terrain of asteroids and small moons to hide, striking at weak points with coordinated precision. The enemy had expected technology to win the battle. But humans added something the enemy could not predict: unpredictability, courage, and a moral drive. Every human pilot, every soldier, acted not only with skill but with intent to save life, to minimize harm, and to protect the helpless. As the battle continued, Earth sent more ships. Communication networks ensured that every unit knew exactly where to strike and where to avoid. Humans were not just fighters, they were problem solvers, adaptable in ways no machine could anticipate. Meanwhile, back on Earth, news of the fleet's engagement spread. Citizens watched with awe as the humans rescued an entire species under threat. Headlines shouted, "Earth steps into the stars to protect the helpless." Public opinion solidified into support, strengthening the morale of those fighting so far away. For Mara, the hardest part was seeing the devastation up close. Cities destroyed, homes lost, and lives ended. But every time she looked at a survivor, every time she saw the grateful eyes of those she saved, she felt the resolve of humanity shining through. It was late when Mara finally allowed herself a brief rest. She sat on a hill overlooking a small clearing where survivors had gathered. They huddled together, trembling yet alive. The wind carried the faint sounds of distant explosions, but Mara focused on the quiet moments. She reached out to touch a small alien hand. It was soft, fragile, but alive. "Don't worry," she whispered. "Help is coming. We won't let them take your home." Somewhere above the stars, the Earth fleet continued its approach, preparing to show the full power of humanity's might. The cry that had reached Earth was more than a plea. It had become a call to action, a test of what humans could do when they chose to act not for conquest, but for life itself. And humanity answered. The first light of SCIFI Cluster's twin suns glinted off the hulls of Earth's fleet. Hundreds of ships moved in precise formation, engines humming with controlled power. The fleet's arrival was unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Alien observers hidden on distant moons and planets watched in awe. Humanity had come, and they had brought their might. On board the flagship Vigilant, Admiral Chen observed the battlefield through a network of holographic screens. The planet below was scarred from the initial attacks, burning cities, craters, and smoldering wreckage, but the survivors were still alive. That was the most important fact. Chen adjusted his command console. Deploy surface strike teams. Mara, you will lead the first unit. Secure the survivors and assist the planetary defense. Mara felt a surge of determination. She had trained for this, but nothing could have prepared her for the sight of the fleet in orbit. Ships of all sizes moved like a coordinated storm, shields glowing, weapons at the ready. The humans below were small but terrifyingly precise. Understood, Admiral, Mara said. She gathered her team, their eyes reflecting both excitement and focus. We know the mission. We rescue survivors. We protect them, and we guide the fleet strikes where they are needed most. Move fast, stay smart, and stay alive. The shuttle carrying Mara and her team descended toward a valley near one of the largest survivor clusters. Fires burned in patches, but the aliens had gathered in a clearing. Waiting, watching, hoping. The humans' arrival sparked a wave of relief. Some ran forward, not understanding words, but understanding the promise of safety. Mara stepped onto the planet's surface, feeling the ground tremble under the distant steps of massive war machines. She motioned to her team and they moved into formation. Their approach was careful but confident. Humans had something no other species possessed, an instinct to fight for others, not just themselves. Above, Earth's fleet engaged the enemy. The alien war machines had not anticipated such coordination. Smaller human ships darted between asteroids, drawing fire, while larger battleships delivered precise strikes. Mara watched a massive machine crumble under a coordinated barrage, its metal body tumbling across the plain. The humans' tactics were unusual. They didn't rely solely on firepower, they used cunning. Mara's team set up diversionary explosions to draw enemy units away from the survivors. Small drones, invisible from afar, monitored enemy movements and relayed real-time data to the fleet. Every maneuver was calculated, yet flexible. Look at them, whispered Rico, pointing at the horizon. They're not just fighting, they're thinking, adapting. Mara nodded. That's humanity. We don't just follow orders. We improvise, and we fight for life, not just victory. On the ground, Mara's team reached the first group of survivors. They were trembling, their delicate wings scorched in places, but they were alive. Mara knelt beside one of the smaller creatures, a child by their species standards. You're safe now, she said softly. Follow us. We'll take you to safety. The aliens hesitated at first, unsure if this strange species could truly protect them. Then, seeing the confidence and determination in Mara's team, they moved forward. Slowly, steadily, the rescue began. The war machines noticed the humans and altered their paths, turning toward Mara's unit. The ground shook with every step and energy beams tore through rocks and trees. Mara signaled her team. Form a perimeter. Keep the aliens protected. They fought with everything they had. Each human soldier moved with a combination of training and instinct. Some set traps for the machines, luring them into craters or tangled terrain. Others used energy shields to block attacks while the survivors escaped. Every movement was a blend of courage, strategy, and empathy, qualities no machine could anticipate. Meanwhile, in orbit, Admiral Chen directed the fleet. Target the enemy's command units, but avoid civilian areas. We protect first, destroy second. The alien war machines began to falter. They had underestimated humans' unpredictability. Unlike other species, humans did not fight for power alone. They fought with compassion, ingenuity, and an unyielding will to protect life. Each strike from the fleet was precise, each maneuver coordinated with ground teams, and each human act of courage inspired the aliens to keep moving. Mara's team led the survivors through narrow canyons and forests, using every natural cover to their advantage. The aliens began to understand the humans' signals. They ducked when Mara pointed, hid when instructed, and even assisted in clearing small debris. It was a partnership, born not of language but trust. Hours passed like minutes. The humans and their fleet gradually turned the tide of the battle. War machines that had seemed invincible fell to combined efforts, small teams on the ground coordinating with orbital strikes. Mara could not help but marvel at the humans' ability to adapt. Every obstacle was met with a solution, every danger with courage. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the survivors reached a safe zone, guarded by Earth's troops and shielded by the fleet. Mara watched them settle, exhausted but alive. She allowed herself a brief moment of relief only to see a new wave of enemy units approaching in the distance. "Looks like we're not done yet," Rico muttered. Mara nodded. "Then we keep going. We protect, we fight, and we never give up. That's who we are." Above, Earth's fleet had taken control of key orbital positions. The alien commanders, previously confident in their overwhelming power, now found themselves facing a force they could not predict. Humans were small in numbers compared to the machines, but they were fast, clever, and united. Each human action seemed to anticipate a machine's response before it even moved. Mara's team intercepted another group of survivors near a shattered city. They moved carefully, using smoke and shadows to avoid detection. The aliens followed instructions, sometimes mimicking the humans' gestures, learning quickly. Mara realized something extraordinary. The aliens were beginning to fight for themselves, inspired by humans' courage. "Every life we save makes a difference," Mara whispered to Rico as they carried an injured alien to the shuttle. "Every small act of bravery counts." The battle raged on through the night. The twin moons reflected the flashes of energy blasts, painting the landscape in eerie light. Yet, amidst the chaos, humans worked calmly and efficiently. Rescue teams, strike units, and drones moved in a coordinated rhythm, guided by determination and instinct. By dawn, the survivors had been brought to safety zones. Mara stood atop a hill looking at the valley below. Fires still burned, but the largest threat had been repelled. The alien survivors were alive, their species spared from extinction. Above them, Earth's fleet gleamed in the sunlight. Ships maneuvered in formation, ready to strike any remaining enemy units. The humans' message was clear. Earth had arrived, and they would not tolerate injustice or harm against the helpless. Mara allowed herself a brief smile. "We did it," she said softly. Not because the battle was over, but because they had proven something important. Humanity's strength was not just in technology or weapons. It was in courage, compassion, and an unbreakable will to protect life. Somewhere in the distance, the enemy's war machines retreated, damaged and bewildered. They had faced an unexpected force, humans who fought not for power, not for conquest, but for survival, for hope, and for justice. Mara watched the retreating machines disappear over the horizon. She knew this was only the beginning. The planet would need rebuilding, the survivors would need protection, and the enemy might return. But one thing was certain. Humanity had shown its might, and the galaxy would never underestimate them again. As she turned to lead the survivors back to the safe zones, Mara felt a surge of pride, not for herself but for all of humanity. They had come across the stars, answered a cry for help, and brought hope where there had been none. And this was only the beginning of a story that would echo through the stars. The dawn broke over the scarred plains of the alien world, casting long shadows over craters and ruins. Fires still smoldered in pockets, smoke curling into the pale sky. Yet for the first time since the battle began, hope filled the air. The survivors, fragile, luminous beings, were alive thanks to humans. Lieutenant Mara Ellison stood atop a ridge, looking at the safe zone below. The aliens had begun to gather in small clusters, helping each other, guided by humans. Their trust in humanity had grown, and with it came something remarkable: courage. They were no longer running blindly. They moved with purpose, mimicking human signals, and taking small but meaningful actions to protect themselves. "Lieutenant," said Ensign Rico, pointing toward the horizon, "enemy units are regrouping. They're concentrating near that ridge." Mara nodded. "Then that's where we go. We need to strike at their command. If we take it out, we turn the tide completely." She relayed the plan to Admiral Chen, who approved it immediately. The enemy had been relentless, but their coordination had a weakness: centralized command. If Mara and her team could reach the hub on the ridge and neutralize it, the war machines below would lose guidance, becoming disorganized and easier to defeat. The journey toward the ridge was dangerous. The ground shook beneath massive enemy machines, and energy beams scorched the terrain. Mara's team moved carefully, using every natural cover. Trees, rocks, and the remains of destroyed structures became shields and hiding spots. "Keep your eyes open," Mara warned. "We don't know what surprises they have." The alien survivors accompanied them cautiously. Some carried small tools, helping clear debris or guide the group through narrow paths. Mara felt a deep sense of pride. They were learning. They were fighting in their own way alongside humans. Hours passed and the team approached the ridge. The enemy command hub loomed ahead, a massive metallic structure surrounded by war machines. Its design was alien, angular, imposing, and unyielding. The humans had faced difficult opponents before, but this was unlike anything they had seen. "Here it is," Mara said quietly.
"Stay sharp."
We go in, disable the hub, and get out. Fast and clean, the team split into units. Mara led the main group directly toward the hub, while Rico and a smaller team created a diversion to draw enemy fire. Explosions erupted in the distance, illuminating the ridge in flashes of light. The diversion worked perfectly. Several war machines diverted their attention, leaving a clearer path for Mara's team. Inside the hub, the humans faced the enemy's defense systems. Automated turrets, energy barriers, and patrolling machines challenged their every step. But the humans adapted. Mara's team disabled turrets with precision strikes, bypassed security grids, and used stealth to move past patrols. Every action demonstrated the ingenuity and courage that set humanity apart. "We've got this," Rico whispered, planting a device to jam enemy sensors. "They won't see us coming," Mara smiled faintly. "Good work. Keep moving." They reached the central chamber of the hub. Massive consoles glowed with alien symbols pulsating with energy. The command systems controlled the war machines on the planet, guiding them with deadly efficiency. Mara and her team set explosives carefully, ensuring the entire structure would collapse without harming the nearby survivors. "Ready," Mara said. "On my mark." Before they could activate the devices, a massive war machine burst through the wall, its energy beams cutting through the chamber. Mara's team dove for cover, exchanging fire. The machine was fast, but humans were faster. With coordinated attacks, they disabled its movement and destroyed its core. "Now," Mara shouted, activating the explosives. The hub trembled violently. Energy pulses surged through the walls as the explosives detonated. The structure began to collapse, sparks flying, systems failing. Outside, the war machines on the plains faltered. Their guidance systems were down. Without commands, they moved aimlessly, confused and ineffective. Mara's team regrouped and moved quickly to the extraction point. The survivors followed, their trust in humans unwavering. Mara looked back at the ridge. The hub exploded in a controlled demolition, sending debris skyward. The humans had struck a decisive blow. From orbit, Admiral Chen watched the transformation. "They've done it," he said quietly. "The enemy is faltering. Humanity has turned the tide." The battle on the planet changed rapidly. Disorganized war machines were neutralized one by one. Humans used strategy and teamwork, combining ground operations with orbital strikes. The alien survivors joined in small ways, guiding humans, warning of hidden threats, and assisting where possible. Together, they created a force the enemy could not withstand. Mara's team reached another group of survivors trapped in a ruined city. Using a combination of stealth, distraction, and speed, they guided them to safety. The aliens, now emboldened, began to assist each other. They lifted debris, tended to the wounded, and protected their own. Mara realized the impact of humans' actions. It was not just survival, but inspiration. Rico approached Mara, holding a small alien child. "Look at them," he said. "They're learning from us. They're fighting back in their own way." Mara nodded. "That's what makes us human. We teach, we protect, and we inspire. They've learned courage from us." By nightfall, the planet was quiet. The majority of war machines had been destroyed or neutralized. Survivors gathered in the safe zones, watching as humans patrolled, ensuring no remaining threats could harm them. Fires still burned, but hope was stronger. Mara walked among the aliens, checking on them, offering comfort where she could. Their expressions reflected relief and gratitude, but also pride. They had survived, and they had learned that even the weakest could fight when guided by courage. In orbit, Earth's fleet maintained a defensive perimeter, ensuring no enemy reinforcements could reach the planet. Admiral Chen addressed the fleet. "Today we have witnessed the strength of humanity, not just in weapons but in our will, our strategy, and our courage. We protect life. That is our true power." On the surface, Mara reflected on the battle. It had been long and dangerous, but the results were clear. Humans had not only protected a species, they had inspired them. The aliens' will to survive had been amplified by humanity's example. They had become partners, not just recipients of help. "Lieutenant," Rico said, "do you think they'll be safe now?" Mara looked at the gathering survivors. their luminous bodies glinting in the firelight. "For now," she said. "But this is only the beginning. We've saved lives, but we must help them rebuild, and if the enemy returns, we'll be ready. Together." The first signs of reconstruction began immediately. Humans assisted in clearing rubble, building shelters, and tending to the wounded. Small acts of kindness, combined with the knowledge of survival, strengthened the alien community. Mara knew that humanity had done more than fight a battle. They had given a civilization a future. Above the horizon, the enemy war machines retreated into space, their strategy destroyed, their confidence shaken. For the first time, they had faced a species that combined courage, compassion, and ingenuity. A species that would not give up no matter the odds. Mara stood on the ridge watching the horizon. She knew more challenges awaited, but for the first time, she felt a deep sense of accomplishment. Humanity had shown the galaxy something powerful, that even against overwhelming odds, the will to protect life, the courage to act, and the determination to inspire could change the course of history. And so, as night fell over the alien world, the survivors huddled together under the watchful eyes of humans. The fires of destruction were fading, replaced by the sparks of hope. Humanity had not just fought, they had led. They had taught the galaxy that strength was not just measured in weapons, but in heart, courage, and unity. The battle was over, but the legacy had begun. The sky above the alien world was clear for the first time in weeks. Smoke from battles had dissipated, leaving the twin suns shining on the plains, mountains, and rivers below. The devastation of the past days was still visible. Craters, ruined structures, and scorched terrain. But hope now prevailed. Survivors moved cautiously through safe zones, rebuilding their lives with the guidance of humans. Lieutenant Mara Ellison walked among them, her boots crunching against the ash-strewn ground. She paused to help an elder alien move a heavy beam from the ruins of a building. The alien's luminous skin flickered with gratitude, a silent expression of trust and respect. Mara had seen it in the eyes of every survivor she had rescued, recognition of humanity's courage and compassion. Above, Earth's fleet maintained orbit, scanning for any remaining threats. Admiral Chen observed the planet through the flagship Vigilant, feeling a mix of pride and relief. Humanity had intervened not with conquest but with protection, and the results were extraordinary. "We did more than defend a planet," Chen said quietly to his second-in-command. "We showed the galaxy what humans are capable of." Back on the surface, Mara coordinated the final rescue operations. Smaller groups of survivors still needed assistance, and temporary shelters were being constructed using a combination of alien materials and human technology. Mara noticed a group of alien children trying to lift a fallen beam on their own. She smiled, realizing that the courage she had witnessed earlier had taken root. They were learning to stand on their own, inspired by humans' actions. "Keep working together," Mara said to the children in her calm, encouraging tone. "You can do it. We'll help if you need us." The children glanced at each other, then with determination managed to lift the beam together. Mara nodded approvingly. "See? You're stronger than you think." Meanwhile, the remnants of the enemy's fleet were retreating into deep space. Their commander, observing the results, could not understand how a weaker species had turned the battle so decisively. They had expected to face predictable tactics, but humans were anything but predictable. Their adaptability, courage, and moral determination had overwhelmed even the most advanced machines. "This species," the enemy commander muttered to themselves, "fights with more than technology. They fight with heart." On the planet, Mara's team moved toward the central city of the survivors. Though the city had suffered immense damage, its foundations remained intact. Mara realized that the rebuilding would take time, but it was possible. Humans shared knowledge of construction techniques, temporary energy shields, and protective measures against future attacks. One of the alien leaders, a tall being named Kiran, approached Mara. Their wings glowed faintly in the sunlight. "You have saved us," Kiran said. Their voice, now clear and calm, carried a note of reverence. "Not just our lives, but our hope. We cannot repay you, but we will remember your deeds forever." Mara shook her head. "You don't need to repay us. That's not why we came. We protect life. That's what humans do." Kiran nodded, understanding more in that moment than any words could convey. They had witnessed humans act not for power, not for gain, but for the sake of others. That simple truth resonated across their species, planting seeds of courage, cooperation, and hope. Back in orbit, the fleet received reports from the ground. Every remaining enemy unit had either been destroyed or scattered. The planet was secure. Admiral Chen allowed himself a small smile. Humanity had proven something vital. True strength was not just weapons and machines, but the will to protect, to inspire, and to act with courage. Mara and her team gathered at the central plaza of the city. Survivors had begun to rebuild homes, repair structures, and cultivate the land. Children laughed, their glowing wings shimmering in the sunlight. For the first time since the attacks began, the atmosphere was peaceful. Mara felt a warmth in her chest, knowing that their mission had achieved more than survival. They had sparked a new beginning. "We've done what we came to do," Rico said, standing beside Mara. "We saved them and we gave them hope." Mara looked around. "Yes, and now we teach them to protect themselves. Courage is not just in saving lives, it's in knowing how to keep them safe." Over the next few days, humans and aliens worked together to strengthen defenses. Humans taught tactical thinking, emergency procedures, and collaborative problem-solving. The aliens absorbed every lesson, eager to understand the strategies that had saved them. Mara realized that this cooperation would not only rebuild the planet, but create a stronger, more resilient society. One evening, as the twin suns set, Mara stood on a hill overlooking the city. Fires from the past battles were now replaced by small lanterns and glowing structures. The survivors had reclaimed their world piece by piece, guided by humanity's presence. Mara felt a profound sense of fulfillment. "Lieutenant," Rico said quietly, "do you think the galaxy will know what we did here?" Mara smiled. "They will. The story of this world, the cry that brought Earth's fleet, and the courage of humans, it will travel far. Other species will see that humanity is not just a force to be reckoned with, but a force to trust. We fight for life, and that is something no machine can ever take away." Above, in the distant reaches of space, the enemy fleets regrouped, their strategy shattered. They had learned a difficult lesson. Humans were unpredictable, resourceful, and guided by principles stronger than any algorithm or weapon system. Humanity's reputation in the galaxy would grow, not through fear, but through the demonstration of courage and moral strength. On the planet, Mara walked through the city, helping survivors, offering guidance, and witnessing acts of rebuilding. The once fragile alien species had regained their strength, empowered not only by technology but by the lessons humans had imparted. They had learned that courage, cooperation, and compassion could shape the future as much as any weapon. As night fell, Mara looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, Earth awaited updates, and humanity's presence would soon be celebrated across worlds. But Mara knew it was not glory that mattered. It was the lives saved, the hope restored, and the example set. She thought back to the original cry that had reached Earth. A simple plea for help, sent across unimaginable distances, had sparked an incredible journey. Humans had answered that call not for reward, but because it was right. And in doing so, they had shown the galaxy what it meant to be truly human, brave, compassionate, and unyielding in the face of danger. The alien survivors gathered in the plaza, forming a circle around Mara and her team. Kieran stepped forward, raising their wings in a gesture of gratitude. The others followed, their glowing forms reflecting unity and respect. Mara felt the weight of the moment. This was more than victory, it was a promise that humans would protect life whenever and wherever they could. Mara addressed the crowd, her voice calm but powerful. "You survived because of courage, because of hope, and because we acted together. Remember this day. Teach your children, and teach your people that life is worth protecting. And know this, Earth will always stand with those in need." A quiet murmur of acknowledgement spread among the survivors. The message was clear, simple, and enduring. Humans had not only saved lives, they had instilled values that would endure for generations. Above, the Earth fleet prepared to depart. Their mission had been completed, and their presence had ensured peace for this planet. Admiral Chen gave the order to withdraw, confident that humanity had left a lasting legacy. The galaxy had witnessed something extraordinary, the might of Earth's military, tempered by wisdom, compassion, and moral courage. Mara watched the ships lift off, their engines glowing against the night sky. She knew the survivors would thrive, and that the galaxy had changed because humans had answered the cry. The legacy of courage, protection, and moral strength would ripple through the stars for years to come. As the fleet disappeared into the distance, Mara turned back to the survivors. Children played safely, adults rebuilt their homes, and the city slowly began to shine with new life. The cry that had reached Earth had not only saved a species, it had awakened a greater truth. Humanity was a force that fought for life, and that force could inspire hope across the universe. Mara smiled softly, knowing that this was only the beginning. Humanity's story in the stars had just begun, and the galaxy would never forget the cry that brought the might of Earth's military and the heart of humanity into the light.